Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is August the 5th, 2026. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day to ya. Hopefully, you humped and didn't get humped. Unless that's what you're into, then by all means, have at it. As for mine, it's been, like I said, pretty good day. I will say, rough start, bad sleep. I went to bed around 11:30, a little bit earlier than I usually like to go to bed for. Figured I'd be all right. And I turned off everything, all that, and I woke up like 3 hours later. And I remember feeling very confident. Like, it's one of those nights where you woke up and like, okay, guess I'm up. Time to greet the day. And you look at your phone and it was like 3:30 or some shit. And I was like, no, this can't be. This can't be right. This can't be. And then I'm kind of like assessing myself, and like I noticed that my foot was hurting, which is something I didn't mention in the other episode. I've been having a bit of foot pain. Longtime listeners know it's, issue that comes up a good amount throughout the year. I, was doing, taking some Advil, whatever, to kind of treat it. It was fine throughout the day. I figured I was good, but then it started flaring up. Maybe that was part of the reason I woke up. I don't know, whatever. But I was just like laying in bed for like maybe an hour or two because I was pretty determined to go back to sleep, and it just wasn't happening. So I finally wound up getting up, using the restroom, icing my foot, and then when everything's said and done, I'm kind of sitting around watching some live stream or whatever, and I literally just tell myself, like, I'm gonna lay down for like 15 minutes before my alarm. Like that is how the night, or the early morning progressed. So we get up, we get ourselves together, and we greet the day, we face the day, we take the day. We get to work. Overall, work was pretty good. We'll say I had a fun, I will call it, put it in fun quotations, moment. Oh, we did get treated with some popcorn, so that was nice. But I'm working, and we had, at one point, like, I want to say around 2ish, we had cleared. No, actually, it was a little bit after 2. We cleared everything on the floor, cardboard buggy wise. It was me, and then my counterpart that works me on second shift. They go upstairs. I come back from my break, and there proceeds to be more work that comes down, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do my usual. I'll handle it. The second shift lead, who usually does check on me, they come by and they say, "Hey, Isaiah, you good?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Just like I always like put up a little thumbs up or whatever. Also, they almost always catch me on my phone, which really annoys me. I'm like, God damn it, I should just be better about this, but like whatever. But I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And they go, okay, and then they come up to me and they go, "Hey, did you hear that they were looking for you on the radio?" Or they had initially kind of inquired about my counterpart, and my counterpart and I do generally have a good rapport. I feel like we try to, like, we got each other's back. I'll say it that way. And I was like, yeah, they were here. They cleared everything out. They went upstairs. I was just catching some extra work down here that was coming down. And the other lead was like, "Oh, okay, well, they were calling for you on the radio to go upstairs." And I was like, "Oh." And I immediately was like, I conceded. I was like, "Hey, I'll go upstairs wherever you want. Like, what floor? Just let me know." And they were like, "Okay, well, I'll call your lead and let him know, because we all, we're all on walkie talkies." And they proceed to call my lead, and it was very funny in a way, because it all comes out in the wash. It all works out, because they go, "Oh, well, what floor would you like Isaiah to go do putbacks on?" And they go, "Oh, well, there's really not much work now." So essentially, it would have been a waste of my time to go upstairs and help do putbacks, when I could have just stayed down and do my primary function, which was actually helpful, because we literally did clear out. That wasn't a lie. That wasn't like some obfuscation. I wasn't telling a fib. Like, that's literally what my counterpart and I did. And I was just catching the extra work. Like, this was productive. This was efficient. But needless to say, whatever. Got through that. We clock out. It was actually a full day, which I'll take. I was really happy that I made it through a full day. Lately, it's been really hard to do that. And I know I really do need to lock in and stay as locked in as I can and make my money, keep my PTO hours. I got to build that up. Um, so yeah, getting through the day, we did it. Awesome. I proceeded to not go to the gym because I was so tired. I was so sleepy. I came home immediately, hit the bed. I slept. I don't even know, over an hour at least. I wake up. I feel a lot better. Kind of let myself reboot for 20 minutes or so ish, and then I go ahead then head out to the gym. Gym was pretty productive, solid for the Wednesday, middle of the week. I got on a bench and just did some what is it? What is it? Dumbbell exercises or whatever. So that was good. That was nice. Did some old bullshit in between. Did some cardio. Got in, got out. Let's see. Then I came home. Did a little bit of stretching. I didn't really fully commit to it, but we did stretch just a little bit. Had a snack and proceeded to realize that I have a good amount of news to cover. So that leads us to, our part two, which is the app about the news. But before we do that, let's go ahead and do our startup, and then we'll get into said news. I will say, mea culpa in advance. I'm gonna speed run these. I think. I don't think we're really gonna get into the details, bloody details, so to speak. Let's see. I will say, despite the nap being a good nap, I still I'm already feeling tired again. I'm like, man, this being 35 shit is for the birds. I miss being in my era where I didn't like naps. You know, sleeping was boring and lame. Now I'm I crave naps. Like ooh wee. Also, bit of side news, girlfriend news. Zoe is back. She's back in town. I'm really glad that she's back. From her trip. So yay, I'm very excited about that. It's gonna be a good weekend. I'm excited. Anyway, um, okay. First story from USA Today. Two killed in shooting at North Carolina home. Suspect also dead. Two people were killed and another was injured in a shooting at a North Carolina home on August 5th, authorities said. The suspected shooter was also found dead at the scene. The Caswell County Sheriff's Office responded to a call for service just before 8 a.m. local time at a residence in Prospect Hill, a rural community about 50 miles northwest of Raleigh. When deputies arrived, they found four people who had been shot, according to Sheriff Tony Durden. Two people in the home and the suspect were pronounced dead, while a fourth person was transported to Duke University Hospital in Durham with a gunshot wound. Authorities did not immediately provide an update on the injured victim's condition. All of the victims were members of the same family, and all were adults, according to the sheriff. The identities of the victims and suspect have not been released. There's no threat to the general public, Durden said at a news conference, describing the shooting as an isolated incident confined to the residents. Local authorities requested the assistance of the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, which began processing evidence and conducting interviews after arriving at the scene. The Caswell County Sheriff's Office, the lead agency in the case, said the investigation remains ongoing. Now, they cover also some other stories that have kind of taken place throughout the month. Let's see, I guess we can just hit at least this one right here. And I know there was one where they talk about Louisiana. I feel like we did cover that on the pod. In late July, authorities said a father fatally shot his wife and six children in a community along Lake Michigan before dying by suicide. Investigators also believe fires were intentionally set inside the home after the killings. Let's see here. Yeah, there's a couple more stories too as well, but for the sake of time and vibes, we're gonna move on to our next story. Obviously, condolences though to people who have lost their lives in those situations. Obviously, the current situation that we covered up top in North Carolina, that's obviously very sad. And not to mention the situations and incidents that lead up to that point. Where, there's a breaking point and someone, decides to say, hey, I'm going to make the decision and I'm going to start literally erasing my own family. Obviously, it's a very sad, grim situation. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. From the BBC. Police raid Starbucks Korea headquarters over Tank Day fiasco. The Tank Day promotion sparked a boycott movement against Starbucks in South Korea. South Korean police have raided the national headquarters of Starbucks over defamation claims surrounding a controversial marketing campaign. Starbucks Korea had in May launched a coffee tumbler promotion called Tank Day on the anniversary of the 1980 Gwangju uprising, where hundreds were believed to have been killed by military forces. Many felt the tank was a reference to vehicles deployed to crush pro-democracy protesters, and the promotion sparked a mass boycott movement. Starbucks quickly rolled it back, saying it was unintentional, but civic groups filed a criminal complaint against the company, demanding the police investigate it for defaming victims of the military dictatorship. I'm sure I'm fucking this up. Shinsegae Group, which operates Starbucks in Korea, said it had launched an internal investigation into the campaign and concluded that the mistake was unintentional. It added that the team had planned the promotion did not draw the connection to the historical event, and the upper management had failed to spot it as well. This feels so like, corpo, Starbucks, Target ass coded. Like, oh, we're going to do something really nice, really sweet for the culture, and we're going to put it on a cup. And they thought they were just going to milk some money out of this. And people go, what the fuck are you doing? And they're like, oh, well, we're just appreciating your... It's like, no, you got it wrong. And they go, oh. And like, oh, okay, fuck. And they had to roll it back. In June, Starbucks stores across the country closed for half a day to allow staff to attend history lessons. Let's see. Shinsegae apologized for the inappropriate marketing and said that the Tank Day controversy had led to a serious decline in Starbucks sales in South Korea, one of the coffee chain's largest markets. Let's see here. There's also another thing I wanted to get to. In addition, promotional material for the tumbler used the phrase "talk on the table," mimicking the sound of an object being slapped on a surface. But tack also was also the word used in a controversial statement given by police in 1987, describing the death of a student activist in custody. So this is another one of those moments where you did this thing and you thought you were fucking cooking in the fucking office room, and then you see it played out, and then someone mentions that connection that you didn't think about, and you go, "Ay, ooh, that's not good. We're gonna get yelled at for that." South Korea's president Lee Jae-myung was among those who criticized the campaign, saying it insults the victims and the bloody struggle of Gwangju residents. The scandal, which broke during the local election also became a prominent talking point between the two major parties. A little bit of yada yada yada, but apparently Starbucks has kind of been co-opted by the right in South Korea, I guess, because of this. Which is a bit cringe, but I really don't care. Like, whether we're talking Bud Light, whether we're talking Starbucks, Target, insert company here, like, you're only as moral, you're only as liberal as, the dollar amount allows. I know that, that at the end of the day is the motivation, is profit for shareholders. So, it's not even like we're trying to do good by the customers in these situations. So all this is vibe-based bullshit. Whether we're talking LGBTQ shit, whether we're talking fucking like, oh, we appreciate your culture and your history. Like, no, they don't. No, they fucking don't. They want you to buy their shitty ass coffee. That's what they want. And look, hey, sometimes I will, okay? But just don't spare me on the bullshit like this. It usually doesn't work, right? It usually winds up not hitting the way that they wanted anyway. Anyway, let's move on. Let's see. Our next story is from the Associated Press. How Abdul Sayed went from political oblivion to progressive breakthrough in Michigan Senate race. So this is good news. We got some good political news to talk about. Let me take a little water break. This has been kind of a brewing, contentious primary campaign. I was really curious to see how this is going to go. It did seem like it was going to be close, even though when you looked at the two candidates, when you looked at how they campaigned, how people were reacting to both of them, it didn't seem that way. It didn't seem like it should be that way, but we'll try to get into it real quick. Abdul Sayed, a former public health official who harnessed Democratic frustration with the party establishment, narrowly defeated Representative Haley Stevens in Michigan's U.S. Senate primary, setting up a crucial test for progressives in a key battleground state. El Sayed will face Republican Mike Rogers, a former congressman, in November. Excuse me, in a race that will help determine control of the Senate. His first challenge will be unifying Democratic factions after a bitter primary that offered divergent visions for a party desperate for a path back to power. The margin was extraordinarily close. El Sayed walked off the stage at his Tuesday night election party without declaring victory, and the race was not called until early Wednesday, after nearly all ballots statewide had been counted. At the time the Associated Press declared him the winner, El Sayed led Stevens by 14,893 votes, just under 1 percentage point, out of more than 1.5 million ballots counted, the most in recent state history. The political significance of the result, however, extends well beyond the slim margin. Abdul's victory was, in my opinion, the most extraordinary victory that I can think of in modern American politics, said Senator Bernie Sanders Wednesday, a leader of the progressive movement who was an early supporter of El Sayed's candidacy. El Sayed, 41, has never held elected office and entered the race 7 years after losing Michigan's Democratic gubernatorial primary by more than 20 percentage points. This time, running on an unapologetically progressive agenda, he overcame more than $60 million in outside spending and an opponent backed by many of Michigan's top Democrats. Also, that outside spending, that $1 million, mostly came from AIPAC. So, love that. Which AIPAC has also added that they're like, oh, even though Haley Stevens lost, our campaign was more against El Sayed anyway, so we're going to be backing the Rogers guy. At the end of the day, AIPAC is working across the aisles for the benefit of Israel. That is what it's been about. That is, like, they are very mask off about it in these times. And I think that this was a very clear, present way of showing that. And I think another reason that this was important too, because I think obviously everyone was hyped. I was hyped for Zohar Mamdani winning, but that was a mayor, a New York mayor, very blue state. Michigan, it's a bit different. This is a swing situation, and we have people really coming out and supporting El Sayed, really backing his vision in a situation when you could pick that, or you could pick a very safe person like Haley Stevens. And when I saw Haley Stevens and I heard some of her credentials and stuff, oh, worked on the, worked with Obama, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, I do get it. I understand that this is a person who you're trying to get for electability, yada, 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 all those middle of the road things. This is a person who can beat Trump type of vibe that we're trying to say here. And literally she was using that for her campaign. Like, what is it? Mike Rogers is actually scared of me. They want El Sayed to win because they think that's going to be a slam dunk. It's like, well, we get to find out now, because I think more people, period, were believing in what El Sayed was saying. Whereas, like, Stevens just feels like someone, it's like, okay, like, she's nice and I want to believe what she's selling me, but, like, at the end of the day, it's like, is she going to be actually able to deliver, And when you see, too, the money, it's like, well, she's clearly going to have to, back these supporters. And I also think when, debates and everything like that came up, I don't know. I think people really did see who was who in those moments. And I really think that they backed the real one. They backed the winner. And I'm really happy to hear that. I'm really happy to see that. Let's see here. I'm going to read a little bit more. In the words of Muhammad Ali, we shook up the world, El Sayed said early Wednesday, standing before the Spirit of Detroit, a landmark bronze statue in the city's downtown. Now, the rest of this kind of goes through a bit of the backstory, details. We're going to skip that for now. I also know there's more primary shit. But we're not covering all that today. That was the biggest highlight. I would say that was like the crown jewel. Also, one thing I did want to kind of discuss too, this discrepancy with the money before we move on, because I do think that's important. Once again, Haley Stevens got about 60 million, mostly APAC money, if I'm not fucking mistaken. In comparison to El Sayed's campaign, about 14.5 mil. So, like saying that it's this close, but when you really look at it, like, and then also, I can't stress enough too. I was listening to the Daily the other day. When you have people actively going out passionately, like knocking on doors, doing the work for, El Sayed, because they actually believe in what they're like, what he's saying. And then by the comparison, you just have like Haley Stevens, like doing like a potluck style thing. You got a couple of the staffers being like, yeah, like we run for this, like we believe that she's an electable candidate. We want to really get a win, from Michigan and Democrats, yada yada. But like pressing them on this shit in terms of like how do you feel about the money and where it's all coming from and da da da. Like I don't feel great about it, and it's like. Yeah, you notice that the people on El Sayed's side didn't really have that issue. They were very happy to be stumping for him, doing the work, because at the end of the day, they believe in him and they want to see him put that shit in action for Michigan. So, that's who I'm going to be rooting for, definitely, come November. So we'll definitely see how that goes. But let's move on. Next story. We got to go to the moon from NBC News. Scientists are certain a wayward SpaceX rocket slammed into the moon as predicted. A SpaceX rocket that launched a pair of lunar landers slammed into the moon as predicted Wednesday after drifting off course for the past year, scientists reported. Although no one observed the actual 5,400 mile per hour collision, a telescope in Chile spotted what astronomers have identified as the debris plume resulting from the crash. Space tracking experts said it was inevitable that the leftover rocket segment plowed into the moon. It's the latest instance of lunar litter, a problem that many fear could worsen as the U.S. and China race put astronauts on the moon. In 2022, a Chinese rocket unintentionally hit the moon following a lunar mission, and many more stray rocket pieces likely struck the moon in decades past without scientists' knowledge. Yeah, I was listening to the BBC talk about this, and they were referencing a point where they believe parts of, I believe, like one of the Artemis moon things, like I don't know if it was satellite or rocket, whatever, but it was making like an orbit around the sun, and at some point eventually fell out of that orbit. And excuse me for getting this all fucking wrong or whatever, but winds up potentially hitting the moon. They think that's what happened, just based off of like the burn off it was giving. It's like, oh, that has to be from that. It's like the paint. So in some ways, I'm hearing this gussied up. Like, I mean, hey, the rocket launched, and it fulfilled that aspect of it. And these things happen, there's gonna be more of it, it's okay, like this is actually kind of like a good thing when you look at it. It's almost business as usual. But I'm more of the vibe of like, this feels like we are literally like doing space junk. We're doing space litter. Like we're littering on the moon. We can't even inhabit the motherfucking spot, and we're leaving shit all over it already. And that's a bummer. And not to mention, we're already doing that to space in general. We're cluttering our skies with, all kinds of bullshit to get better Wi-Fi or whatever. I've heard the craziest notion. I've heard, oh, we're going to try to put data centers in space. We're going to try to put data centers underwater. That's a whole other thing. But like, it's frustrating because it's just like, in some ways you're trying to see us like, oh, this is our footprint that we're leaving, but it's for a good cause, so it's all good. When it's like, no, I think this is just bad. This feels not good. But and also like at the end of the day, it's like, well, we kind of planned for it to be there. Yeah, after it kind of didn't come back, right? I don't know. I'm kind of scanning the details of it or whatever. But this is a story that I didn't like. Definitely it was a thumbs down for your boy. And like, I am a hater of all things Elon Musk, but I've said this before. When it comes to something like SpaceX, I want to see things go to space. Like I think that's interesting. I think it's fun to watch, things go boom and not go boom. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, successful rocket launch is what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. I will say though, last month I believe I didn't cover a big like Blue Origin, the Jeff Bezos rocket. I didn't cover that situation. I think it like blew up on takeoff, but I don't know that it didn't go to the moon. Different kind of litter. At least that's on our planet. Anyway, that's our space news. We have one more thing that I wanted to cover. It's a bit of catch up. It was news from last week that I heard about at the top of the week. We got to talk about Japan. We got to talk about America. We got to talk about some bad money. But yeah, let's go ahead and take our last break, and we'll go ahead and close it out. Oh yeah. All right. Our last story comes from Reuters. Yen holds gains after Japan US confirmed joint intervention, signal more action. The Japanese yen held gains above recent 40-year lows on Monday after Japan and the United States launched a rare joint yen buying intervention and vowed to take further action if needed to shore up the currency. The intervention on Friday underscored both countries' resolve to prevent a sell-off in the yen and Japanese government bonds from causing global spillovers, such as adding upward pressure on already rising U.S. Treasury yields, analysts said. So I kind of just want to get out of this. Essentially, we rushed to help them out to prop up the yen because if it fell any further, they would resort to a situation where they're selling treasury bonds. There's a situation I think that was like a big deal at the top of this year or last year with the tariffs. I can't quite remember. I'm fuzzy on it. But it's like, we can't have that. That would be bad for us. The dollar would then probably, I think, even take a harder hit. So they're like, we're willing to take a small hit on the dollar now if it helps Japan here, and hopefully they can get their shit together and things can bounce back. Though I think a lot of economists or some economists are really saying like, this feels like a temporary fix. You're kind of putting the finger in the dike and, hoping that the vibes kind of improve and get better, and then there's a bounce back. But I don't really know or hear anything being implemented that's really gonna make this better. We'll see. I'm sure Sine Takaichi is working hard every day, running on 3 hours of sleep. Dude, I was just thinking about that. I did 3 hours of sleep and I needed more sleep. And look, I'm just a chud, I could never. But yeah, rest up. Hustle culture is a fucking joke. Don't do that shit, man. At least take care of yourself. I'm not saying you got to get 12 hours. I wish I was built for that, but I'm not. But like, do what you can, relax, take a break. And I know we're not talking about money anymore, but I mean, shit, that's obviously not my fucking specialty. I'm broke as fuck. Anyway, that's really it. That's all I have. Obviously, you can go to the article. Also, check Yahoo Finance if Reuters, paywalls you. And they do that to me all the time. So, whatever. But anyway, that'll be the episode for today. If you'd like to help out support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/AzaneNews. Become a newsy today. Free ways to hit me up, azanenews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube, follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify, follow on Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen. Leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is always caring. 5 stars, all stars, whatever, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts are always appreciated. But if you don't do any of that, I'm just glad that you listened. I'm glad that you made it this far, and hopefully, you come back for the next one. But yeah, hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye bye. Mwah.